All right. Welcome, sisters. Good evening. I'm really happy to be here. My name is Laura, Dr. Luna, or I go by Anna too. And we're gathered this evening to continue our roundtable dialogues, and we're moving through these 9 healing states. And we've been gathering every month to talk about the healing states. Sorry, I wrote them down and I don't have the paper. I thought I had the paper and I don't have it in front of me, but anyways, we've been talking every month for this is our 4th meeting together, and just moving through this medicine of the 9 healing states. So we talked about community. We talked about healing happens in community. We talked about earth is the source of all medicine. We talked about water is life. And we've come together here through Lunai Soul Sanctuary, the nonprofit organization that is designed with the vision that we all have the right really to be on our healing journey, to have access to ways of knowing ourselves, to become more in harmony. And so just creating that space for healing, for us to heal, for us to talk about these really important topics at this time that we're living through, where we're really needing more support and guidance to bring ourselves into harmony and into peace, and to really connect with each other from a place of love and heart-centeredness. So I'm just really grateful that you're both here and that we can sit together in this virtual space. One of the things that I've been really holding in my heart for a while is to have an actual physical space for the sanctuary where we can have our retreats and have our prayer ceremonies and come together as sisters, holding space for each other. So I'm just going to keep planting that seed, and that we might have support with a space like that somehow, some way. So tonight we're talking about our languages, the importance of learning our languages. I know Lisa, Dr. Grayshield, you talked about in your manuscript learning our tribal languages. So I definitely want us to dive into that. But as I was thinking about our tribal languages and learning my tribal language and all the things that are happening lately too, I was just thinking about communicating from the heart, like the language of love, right? How do we communicate with love, and how do we remember that? Whether we speak our tribal language or not, I think that's maybe something that's missing for a lot of us, like communicating with love to each other, with each other. How do we relate with each other? I know for me, coming from a Mexican background, there was always kind of a strong use of corporal punishment. So the language of love is a little bit different there. It's a little bit distorted, I think. And so even though I learned Spanish growing up, I figured out when I was going through my PhD that Spanish is also the language of the colonizer. So, taking ownership for that and realizing what that means, and also still being proud that I can speak 2 languages, but trying to understand, what is my tribal language? What language should I be adopting or learning? And then really moving beyond that too, to try and understand how to communicate with others with love and compassion and peace, which is, I think, what we need right now. But so I just wanted to start it off with that. And Lisa, I'd love for you to share a little bit more about what you were thinking about when you came up with this healing state, and then even how it relates to the other healing states, and even what you think about the language of love. And and how that may relate to the tribal languages, because I think that there's this rhythm and this tone with tribal languages that inherently has this quality of love within it, that is different than other languages. So I'd love to hear anything that you're thinking right now about what you wrote.
Well, thank you. Yeah, there's so much to say about that. Um, growing up, I've always, learned words and phrases in my Washoe language, from my relatives. But, a lot of commands and do this and do that kind of thing. But we didn't actually really speak that language on a regular basis. And it wasn't until I got older that I realized that I was missing something, and so I learned pretty young how to introduce myself, but it's, it takes a lifetime sometimes to figure out, who we really are. And so, um, I learned how to pray in my language. And once I did that, once I learned those prayers in my language, I felt that internal connectedness. It might sound all kind of new agey and woo-woo-ish, but was my experience. My experience was prayer is powerful. And I know that because if we understand everything from a level of frequency and vibration, there's nothing stronger than intention that has come together in prayer. And so, I believe in prayer, whether it be in a church building or a teepee or a sweat lodge, or however that is, and all the different kinds of prayers that we have. I really believe in the intentions of those kinds of prayers. And so, I realized so I've always grown up with an understanding that language really does ultimately define who we are, because our languages, within our language, that contains the concepts that really define who we are as a people. As a Native person, I didn't learn my language as a child. And so I was disconnected, yet I was still in an environment where I was surrounded by my relatives and I heard it spoken quite a bit. And so I picked it up, but I also picked up the underlying epistemology from which that language was based on. And I know that now, after all this work and research and I walk and that kind of thing. But, I know that, deep within me, there is an understanding of life that's beyond what I can speak, because it comes from my culture. It comes from the vibration of who I am as a person. And also the work that I've done to reconnect myself with who I am as an Indigenous person, connect myself to the land. So language is life. Language is, it's the expression. Oftentimes we say language is the expression of the mind, but it's also the expression of the soul. My auntie told me once that words are prayers and thoughts are creation. So what we're thinking, we're creating. What we're speaking, we're praying into being, that it's going to really happen. So it's what we say is powerful. Negative, positive, doesn't matter. That's why we have witchcraft and we have people with real kind of negative intents that are really focusing that energy and doing those kinds of black magic kinds of stuff, but we also, so that vibration works in a lot of different directions. And so language reconnects us. Our tribal languages reconnect us, with kind of the center of who we are. But beyond that is what you talk about, Lauda, this language of love, because there's an intention behind what we say when we speak, because we're speaking something that we've already thought about. And what we think about is connected deeper at the soul level. Sometimes it comes from pain, sometimes it comes from insecurity, sometimes it comes from wisdom, sometimes it comes from, all these different places. And so that's that soul level. So that soul drives that thought process, which drives those words that are coming out of our mind, out of our mouths. And even deeper than that is our connection with spirit, which is ultimately because we are spirit beings. It's like, there's spirit in everything. We're all a part of spirit, but that inner knowing that we are all connected, that's where language brings us back to. And sometimes I look at the English language and I see that all of our languages, ancient languages, speak of that interconnectedness. But in a colonizer's language that's informed through through an epistemology of gross national product, right? A westernized kinds of thinking, we lose the depth of meaning within language because it's now a functional language, you know, a language that is is bringing in money and all, and you know, and we have these linear thought processes that are happening, and so it precludes that connection, that connection to spirit. So you know, there's a difference in some of these languages. An indigenous language understands that deep interconnection. A colonizer's language, and a colonizer's language is an evolved language. It's a language that has evolved just as technology has evolved. You know, it doesn't mean it's spiritually grounded or spiritually connected. It means that it has evolved into those, and that evolution is an evolution away from the knowing of our interconnection and interdependence. You know, so I don't know if all of that, you know, really makes a lot of sense, but you know, there's the language of the mind are our words, the words that we speak. You know, the language of the soul, it's the feelings that we feel. You know, the things that drive how we think and what we say. It's that language, that soul language. So it's important to heal up that soul so that that language coming through has good intentions and is bringing and contributing to a really good vibration within our families, our communities, you know. So all of these things that we're doing to be well and to reconnect with spirit, you know, ceremonies and those kinds of things are really important to heal up that soul, because there's a lot of people out there that are causing a lot of damage because of really hurt, you know, passing that hurt on to our next generation. So it's important to heal that up. And the language of spirit, that's that interconnection. And when we have a soul wound, oftentimes we're disconnected from that knowing of who we are as spiritual beings. And so we're kind of driven out there by whatever is influencing our mind, you know, the social, political constructs of the day, as opposed to the knowing that we are spiritual beings, that we do make a difference, that our thoughts and our words and our prayers and the way we live our lives contributes to an overall vibration that can bring life, you know, unless it's bringing destruction or however that's working, you know. So that's a lot to think about, you know, with respect to language and vibration. But, you know, so our tribal, for me, my tribal language brought me back to understanding the interconnectedness with the earth. That was the difference I saw in the Western language that I had been learning to speak all my life, and my tribal language that reconnected me, because my language is a peaceful language. You know, we didn't even really have warring words in our language. We were a small tribe up on the top of the Sierra Nevada mountain range, and all the settlers came around our area through different passageways and kind of left us to the end until gold was discovered in Virginia City. And then in those mid 1800s, there was that gold rush that came in. And then in 1864, Nevada became a state. It wasn't that long ago. You know, my granny remembered those times. And so, you know, those kinds of vibrations, that's what we're healing up, you know. It's still so that, so I think that a lot of the trauma sometimes that we experience is the trauma of knowing that life is one way, it's interconnected, but then watching the destruction of that life happen right in front of our face. And now we're even complacent about it. And now we even contribute in that destruction, you know, in some ways. And so it's important that, you know, we're at a place that where we understand that words are prayers, that it doesn't matter whether it comes from this language or that language or whatever language. Whatever we're using, we can begin to apply a deep understanding that our words are prayers. So we want to, you know, if we're speaking and we assess ourselves to be angry, then maybe we need to take a look at that, you know, or we assess ourselves to be some kind of way. I mean, sometimes it's good to be angry. You know, we got to be angry. It's a positive thing. It's not always negative, but it can hurt us if we're not addressing some kind of deeper issue. So, yeah, that's the last thought I have, you know, right now, is that, you know, words are prayers and thoughts are creations. And those indigenous languages are really deep connections. And that was the thought. And, you know, this also came out of a study. When we were looking at a group of elders and asking them about how to heal up trauma. You know, one of the things that these Native Indigenous elders said is we need to return to our culture and our language and our traditions. And so and so that was, it's like, yeah, it's important. If we're speaking our language, then we're connecting to a vibration that is so ancient and that comes from an understanding of interconnection and interdependence. That's why we say all my relations, meet Lao Dielo or Mitakuyasin, we're all connected. So yeah, that's what I was thinking at that point.
Yeah, and I think that's so important, what you bring up about the connection piece. Because I was thinking, and that's what I was thinking about in the last couple of weeks a lot. I mean, for a while, but in the last couple of weeks, like how does a child end up in a position to where they hurt others intentionally, And it's a big disconnection. It's a really big disconnection between themselves, their own selves, their families, their communities. And I think that the tribal language and the culture, that brings us back to who we are. And it does help us to heal those wounds that we carry as Indigenous people, living in this country, living in the United States, where there's a long history of racism and violence. And so, yeah, we're still living that today. And I think it's that loss of our culture, of our connection to ourselves, of connection to our culture, of the connection to our families, right? Like even our own families, there's a disconnect between parents and children with the influence of technology and video games and movies and all those kinds of things. It's really hard to keep children engaged with so many bright lights. So I think that connection piece, what you're talking about, bringing ourselves back to ourselves through our tribal language, through our native languages, is important. I'd love to hear what you have to say, Marilyn, Dr. Begay, about language and your tribal language, and also this idea of heart, the language of the heart, the language of love.
Yeah, hi, good evening. I'm just sitting outside and thinking about what Lisa said. And then the 9 healing states, was it? Or 10 healing states that was mentioned by elders. And I think that we are lost. We've lost uh, a lot of our language. And when I work with young people, maybe a good 25%, I think, are very fluent Navajo speakers. And usually they're the ones that are raised by their grandparents, like they would stay at their grandparents or while their parents work. But I grew up with my language all the way from the time I was born. No one spoke English, and my grandma spoke Navajo, no English. My mother spoke Navajo, no English. My dad as well.
Oh, we just lost Marilyn.
She kicked out.
Yeah, she got kicked out. So we'll pause on what she was talking about for a second. She was talking about how she had the opportunity to learn her language from really early on. And I was just thinking about, for me growing up learning Spanish and how important that was to my parents, which I'm really grateful for that. That they wanted me to be bilingual and have a place where I was able to communicate in both languages. So I went to school from kindergarten to like fourth grade just speaking Spanish, like it was full a full program where I got to speak Spanish. And of course, at that time, because my parents are not connected to their indigeneity, I didn't really have any understanding of an indigenous language. And I know that there's many different indigenous languages in Mexico. There's a lot of different languages that are still spoken today. One of my uncles still speaks a language that they call Tarascan, the Tarascan language. Oh, Marilyn said her phone overheated. So hopefully she gets back in. But one of my uncles still speaks that language, and it's a very rhythmic language. And but I still go back to, to the heart-centered piece of it within all of that. How do we express that through our language, through the native language? I really like what you were saying about your language connecting you to the earth, your relationship with the earth, because that's another thing that's disconnected when we're not connected to our indigenous culture. We're so disconnected from Mother Earth. We don't understand that she's actually a living being, breathing being.
Yeah, is that our language is the expression of our worldview, and a Western worldview is it's kind of an opposite of an indigenous worldview, where the earth is our it's our mother, to be loved and respected and cared for our future generations. We treat the earth in a way that our grandchildren's grandchildren's grandchildren can experience the beauties and have access to the medicines and the foods that were created for us. That's a really very indigenous way of thinking, but from a different paradigm. It's all about how much money can I make, and so food becomes commodified and processed and packaged and sent off. So that understanding of that earth as a commodity, so that somebody can make money, and tear up our earth, it's that's what we're all faced with today. We're faced with that paradigm, and I think that the fact that we were having these kinds of dialogues is evidence that there's enough people out there, indigenous, non-indigenous. I mean, we're all indigenous really at some level. Nobody's not indigenous. It's just many of us are so far removed from that indigeneity and have been so socialized into a Western structure that we're thinking the way they all think. How much is this worth? It's always, I hear one of my grandsons say, that cost me $55. It's like, so what? It's like, we don't, where it's like, I watch, we don't value things by the way that it costs, but we value things for the life that it brings, and it's a whole different way of thinking about life right now. And right now we're at a place where we need to return to that. The technological advances that we're living with today have brought us away from that understanding of connection, interconnection, and interdependence with the earth. And one way that I found helps to renew that, language it expresses our values. So when I learn my language, I'm learning a language that was dependent on our relationship with the seasonal cycles of the earth. It was, and we find out that, that relationship, that's what's healthy. That's what keeps us well. I mean, Western scientific research, validates what indigenous people have known for a long time. The earth is alive. It carries a vibration. When you walk barefoot on the earth, there's an energy that runs up through your body and grounds you out. It helps to rebalance your energy structures, rebalance your brainwave patterning, as shown on those brain state kind of research and biofeedback information. So yeah, I think those languages, the ancient languages help to reconnect us. There was a, should I keep going? You just disappeared too.
I did? I disappeared?
There you are. But I took a Sanskrit class, because I was fascinated by ancient teachings and traditions. And yoga is an ancient teaching, indigenous tradition. And so I took some courses and I got my yoga training and did all those things. And I took a Sanskrit class, and I remember as I was sitting there listening to these mantras, I know this is vibration. I know it's about vibration. So I was happy to participate and to learn these mantras that were being offered to me. And so this one mantra comes through, and I'm sitting there, and it's Om Gang Ganapataye Namaha, Om Gang. And so the Sanskrit teacher is explaining to us how this language is formed. And then she speaks this, the tones of the language, the way that it vibrates off the throat, the glottalized sounds that happen deep in the throat. Because it's a language of the heart, you can feel deep, and it's very much dependent on that vibration and less dependent on the vernacular, the sounds that are coming through. And so she was explaining this about Sanskrit, and then she taught us this mantra. And I said this mantra, and then I remembered at the same time, simultaneously, the way that our people talk about creation, the creator, the universal consciousness, all knowing, if you will. It was the same way. It was hungayangayari, detugetuk, so it was those same kinds of deep glottalized deep throat sounds, even down into the chest and into the stomach, as some of those sounds really pushed up. Beautiful. And I was struck by the idea that these were where all of our languages come from, because vibration and sound, we all started from these places, and life, it's like we got our organic body came through here, and then we have our spiritual essence that fills that, and so yeah, language reconnects us to the very soul of who we are. And if we just rely on the colonizers' languages, which is nobody's language, those are languages that have evolved from a need, from a conqueror's point of view. Mm-hmm. That's where they come from. They're conquerors' languages. And so the deep understanding of those languages is that the earth is a commodity, and that, it's all about who's better and best and how much money and power and those kind of things, as opposed to community, so that power is more equally distributed, and it's understood that we all, each and every single one of us, is important, and that we each have our own unique sense of self that is uncomparable to anybody else. And so, language reconnects us with that. And so I understood when my auntie said, speak good words, say good things. I remember we were gossiping, and she was saying, don't say that, don't talk like that. It's like, it was more than just don't gossip. She was saying, talk about what you want, because she knew that what we were saying we were going to create. And then what happened with all this trauma? We began to create even more trauma for ourselves, and we pass that on to those generations because we don't know how to deal with that kind of trauma. So language is important. It's important in the healing process at every level. And it's important for us as healers, as people who hold space for other people. It's important for us to examine the underlying intention behind our language and the way that we speak to everyone. The people that we love the most, the ones we're all snappy at, the ones that we're very accommodating to, the way that we speak teaches us a lot about ourselves. And as healers, we want to pay attention, because we have an opportunity to just produce a positive, high vibration of love when we hold each other in these beautiful ways of prayer and those kinds of things. So.
Thank you, Lisa. Marilyn, I know you got your phone got overheated. Did you want to share? You were telling us a little bit about how you grew up learning your language, and I think that's really special to be able to have the teachings from your grandparents of your native language. Do you want to keep going with that?
Sorry about that. I got disconnected. This phone, it overheated, and then I put it in the freezer. But I'm using this phone. I put it in the freezer, and I thought, well, I better not do that. And like, that's something that happened. So I took it back out. Oh, excuse me, Bob. Um, language. Yeah, I spoke even when I entered college. My mind, I noticed that in college that I was having the hardest time mm, just staying in college, I guess. So I had to take 2 years of English language at the college level, just kind of a little bit catch up to the other students. But that carried me all the way to the end. But sometimes I would be embarrassed about how I would try to explain myself in English, and I look upon my sisters that can speak really good English, and sometimes I just wish I could um, speak that way. That way I can explain what I'm trying to say. Um, but to me, you know, people ask me, why do you want to stay on the reservation? It's not, it's not, it's not a progressive place to be. And people that stay on the reservation, they hang on to the way they were taught, I guess, by their grandmas, and um, they wanna live that life of uh, living off the land and having livestock, um, just being where they grew up, I guess. And the thing is that the language, in order to keep it, you have to speak it all the time. And if you don't speak it, then you lose it because it's so hard. And then there's other languages too. Um, and when you're talking English, it's mostly like around the front part of your mouth. And sometimes I can't say certain words or it's a struggle because my mouth doesn't work that way. So, but I know what Lisa's saying is that the spirit and the healing, it is true. We speak Navajo language is a language of the gods. That's what they say. It's a language of the gods, and it was given to us. And that all prayers and songs are in Navajo. And sometimes when an elder is singing, some of the words are ancient and they don't use in everyday language. Um, and those are specifically for songs. Um, and yeah, there's two tones in there uh, that that's kind of like the earth's vibration. Um, when you start a song, you sing something like hey and hey, like that. That's the earth's tone, and you introduce it like that, and then you sing it with how the earth sounds. I guess it's very earthly. So it's just a different understanding, I guess. Um, Different ways of understanding things. So, and the language was the birds. I heard that the bluebirds, gave us the language, the birds, and all these animals we see. We just take it for granted, but they're the ones that were here first on this earth, and that they have exceptional intelligence that make us humans uh, like the right below, below You can't go above, nature, because it has all that intelligence that we can't measure up to, and they're that much closer to the creator. And one time I saw a video. I don't know if I shared it with you guys, but it showed, I think it was on Twitter or something. It was like there was all these birds that were gathered, and for some reason they all dropped dead on the ground, and it was like my inner spirit just went flop. Yeah, so it's just hard. But the language is really, really important, and it hurts to see young people not speaking it. And it's a soulless language. Hold on. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Marilyn. As I just listening to you talk, I always like listening to you tell stories, especially when we're sitting around the fire. Just the way that you express yourself, I could just listen to you for hours. Because there's so much medicine in the tone of your voice and the sound of your voice. And so that's the medicine too, I see, of knowing and speaking your tribal language, and learning also those words, those specific words and songs that are for healing, to help us heal. And that, like, so much depth in that, in the vibration, and understanding what vibrations and what tones help us to heal, right? It's so much wisdom in that. And like what you were saying too, Lisa, with the Sanskrit, is those vibrations, right? There's a tone that is heard that sends off a frequency that helps us to feel a certain way, right? Feel good, feel better, feel more at ease. And of course, each one has a different intention, like what you were saying, Marilyn, that, the songs they have, you weren't saying it now, but we had a conversation about the songs that are for specific purposes. So then our prayers, our songs also guide us into understanding how to move through things that we're going through, how to express ourselves and move maybe stuck energy or whatever it is that we're going through. It helps us to move all that energy through our body with those ancient languages, as opposed to English or westernized languages that don't have that. And yeah, I think, I don't, maybe they are soulless. Yeah, soulless, or just it's a different intention, right, Lisa? Like you were saying, it's like it's more about how do we buy something, how do we sell something. It's like that's the intention with the language. We have all the words for doing that, but we're missing the heart piece of the connection with each other, with nature, with the things that are around us. So as we lose our languages, that's what happens to us. We lose our connection to our indigeneity, whatever indigeneity it is, from whatever part of the world, but we lose that connection to realize that we're here to keep the land, right? As earth keepers, we're here to help the land, and to move through with the support of the land. We can't do that without the support of the land, right? Because if we don't have water, we're not alive. So I'll stop there and let somebody else chime in. Lisa, do you want to add?
Yeah, I don't really know what to add to that, and it feels like, we've said some pretty powerful things, but it's like I don't feel like I'm really teaching anything. I feel like I'm learning as well, and even as we talk, and we pay attention to those things, sometimes if I can get in there, I can actually feel the vibration of my words, and I think that it's important for us um, to be aware of what's going, of the intention underneath our words. It indicates our ability to connect with each other and to connect with others. Sometimes we meet people where that energy is like pushing away, always pushing away, but incongruency in what somebody is saying. How is your day today? Like, you really want to know? It's like some underlying intentions. um One thing I learned about languages is that they have their own constructs. Conceptually, languages are different. The concepts that they convey are either going to teach us how to do things in one way or another. And so, and those ancient languages, indigenous languages, teach us how to stay connected to the land, because we understood that the earth is alive, and the earth is the source of all of our food and all of our medicine, that we need to have maintain that connection. Yet we're stuck, we're working with a language, like you said, it's all about what do we buy, what do we sell. And so, if you know your native language and there's any opportunities to learn, it's important, for us to do that. If not, other languages are good too. Sanskrit is a language that everybody all over the world is speaking. They're putting these mantras out. And that language is a language of connection and love and realignment with the center core of who we are, because it's based on core sounds, and that's what those indigenous languages are. They're based on core sounds because they're about the connection, our interconnection and interdependence. So, sometimes, I don't think I really ever really truly was able to speak about my understanding of vibration and frequency with respect to language until, obviously I studied it and learned all this vocabulary. But I knew these things as a child, and I think most children do know these things. Children understand when their parents are upset or what's going on. I mean, nonverbal communication is really loud. And there's so much more information that we can learn by connecting with each other, in a way that's beyond the spoken word, but, moving into the heart and speak in that language of love. So, um, yeah, thank you for this, learning also music too. I want to make sure that we point out that music is a language, is a universal language. I love singing songs in other people's languages when I get that opportunity, because it connects me with the vibration of that indigenous way. And at the end of that, and helps us. This is how they connected, how these people connected. This is how these people connected. This is how we connected. This is how we say this. How do you say this? There's an underlying understanding that we're all related. So, anyway, that's all I'll say. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I kept thinking about it and kept forgetting about music and sound and that as a language and all the healing properties that those sounds have for us. And yeah, I just keep thinking about how we can change our energy, right? How we can change the direction of our thoughts, how we can change the direction of our emotions so that we are not driven by our emotions, so that we are not being controlled by our thoughts, right? That we can direct our thoughts and that we can experience our emotions in a way that is not harmful to others, which I think is really challenging for us right now. As humans, we're experiencing that challenge. So I kind of, I mean, this is just inspiring me to look more closely into. I mean, there's so many things to learn. There's so many things to study. It's like never ending. But I've looked at, like, I have a really strong connection to Peru and South America, and there they speak Quechua. And I also, with being going to yoga teacher trainings and studying Ayurveda, learning Sanskrit, more of the Sanskrit words, and so I'm connecting with those languages and just trying to use those energies, those vibrations to help support my own body and my own alignment. And like you said, have more awareness of myself and how I communicate with others and with myself. Even how do I communicate with myself, and how do I relate with what's around me? Those are the thoughts that I have in my head right now. But the sound, the music that really surpasses all word language, right? We all can connect with a song that activates our heart, or activates our desire to dance or laugh or move around, or just be playful. So those are my thoughts on that. Marilyn, I'd love to hear more from you about song, because I know you're learning a lot of songs lately. So can you share a little bit about that language that you're learning?
Oh my gosh, yes. Um, I had a chance, and I mean, when opportunity knocks, you don't even know if it's an opportunity until it is done. Well, I had this chance to lead some songs, even though I didn't know the songs, but I had my teacher sitting next to me, and so just sitting there in the place of humbleness and gratefulness in that place, uh, and to witness and to feel um, these beautiful, beautiful songs, and it was like you go on you travel with your spirit, you travel with your spirit to these really beautiful places of love. And I was just so honored and humbled to have experienced that. And it's something that I will never forget. Um, I'm not in a place I'm not ready, to be there yet. I know what it's like now, and I'm not ready to be in that place yet. I'm still feeling like I have shortcomings, and I probably wait another 6, 7 years to immerse myself in those ways, uh, because I have a different calling, and I have been given different tools to walk the life that I am walking right now. But my heart yearns for it, my spirit yearns for it, and we can only do so much, and I can only do so much, and I feel like I'm doing the work that I'm supposed to be doing now, and hopefully in the near future I will experience that again. I am scared because if I do, it's gonna pull me in like the way it pulled me in the time I was able to experience that, and it is the most glorious thing I ever felt. And I'm one I see why now, our medicine people take that and run with it like there's no other there's no questions, there's no other ways of wanting to be. You just want to immerse yourself in it. And once you do that, there are limitations and you have to be in it 100%. But to me, it's that way because once you're exposed to this type of holiness, you just don't, you just feel like the other world is not a comforting place to be. It's not of love. I think that's what you experienced when you went to Peru, with the medicine, and you felt that love, and you felt the vibrations, and that's what I'm talking about. So and we were like right at the outskirt of a city in a mobile home, singing these songs, but it wasn't we were in. When people move out to the cities, they can't really have ogon out there because they're living in someone else's home and they're paying rent. So they really don't really have a sacred space, but we do as much as we can, with what people have. So, but it's still, similar. What the songs are powerful, very powerful. Um, I really never really experienced it. I mean, it was like it started at 11 in the evening or 12, and then it was all night just singing, chanting until, I would say about 7 in the morning. And I mean, who does that? Sitting up, you have to be wide awake. It's intense. Ceremonies are intense. Prayers, yeah, they're intense. I don't know what else to share.
No, thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate what you're sharing and just hearing just your reverence, your reverence and your respect for that sacred medicine, those ancient prayers and songs, and the humility that you come forward with it is really just touching. I think it's something that's rare, the that humility and reverence that you carry with you, and that has a vibration too, and so I really respect that. I really respect that too, and having been present when you are doing your prayers and singing the songs, it's really transformative. It really helps uplift us in a way that is, there are no words for that. Like, even, bringing up my time with the medicine in South America, there are no words for all those experiences. That is just this, yeah, I still don't have words, even though it's been a long time that I had those experiences, but it's just this perfect essence, this perfection that we don't have, that we don't experience when we're not in those sacred spaces, I guess.
That's true. And thank you for the feedback, compliment.
For that too, appreciation, Marilyn, for your prayers and the amount of time that you spend in prayer for other people. you know, not only your job, but just in that leading. Um, you know, it's an honor to get to sit and pray with my sisters, you know, and get to learn about these different things and share this, I don't know, consciousness. You know, I remember when I went to Peru the first time with Lauda and another one of uh, my students, and experienced that medicine, and then came back my own ways of thinking and being, and realizing, you know, too, and getting to experience that we get so disconnected. You know, what that medicine does is it reconnects us by reactivating that DMT that's in our pineal glands. And that happens through songs, prayers, all those things that we've been talking about. You know, it's a part of who we are. And so I just want to say thank you. You know, I learn a lot too from sitting in all of these ceremonies together and putting these prayers down together. So, yeah, and Lauda, you too, you know, it's like your seventh generation mind and ability to put all of these things together, and the things that you're doing um, is, you know, it's really inspiring. You inspire me to continue to learn, you know, to not ever stop learning. So I want to say that much. And Miangwa Mibi, it's, you know, it's good that we're all here together. Ngayangayari, that to get to, you know, we know all these things that we need to know at the moment we need to know them. So just want to say thank you to the creator, you know, for getting to share these words, and whoever's out there listening to these words too, that, you know, that the intention that we have for sharing this, that inner vibration, is even being able to go through these lines, you know, and we can share that love with all of us. So
Mhm.
yeah, Miangwa Mibi.
I wanted to, yeah, go
You're on.
yeah, I wanted to say thank you for starting that, the ways of the different ways of necessary states for our nations to heal, and the words, you know, that came from the elders, and how they see what is needed and necessary. I agree. I agree with what they've outlined for us, and that it just it touches my heart to know that you came across something that is very very tender or unique, uh, very special, and very intelligent. Something that I don't think was, you know, we weren't taught in schools with, but um, the amount of intelligence that was shared, and that we're going through each healing state. You know, I think about those things, and the ancient um, elements that were here before us, like the water and the tones of the earth, the cosmos. I'm sorry, but somebody's working on my air conditioner because I can't. It's like sweat lodge in there. But yeah, it just touches my heart to know what we do today together and as sisters, and to call out, you know, for other like-minded sisters to share and to be in this dialogue with us. Uh, I think that we kind of sing the same, we kind of talk the same, along the same line, even though we're from different tribes. even though we come from different languages, and that everything, everything, this life, it points at love. Um, if you understand love and compassion, if you understand that language, you are connected, and that I'm still learning about all that. I'm still learning to be accepting of people that get under my skin, and working with people, and um, uh, be accepting unconditionally is a challenge, but that is the focus, and that's the goal. That's the goal that I look forward to, and it gets challenging, yes, but that's the language of love, of ceremonies, and language of the earth and sky, cosmos. So just want to re-emphasize that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that, Marilyn. I think to just really holding that that knowing of the frequency of love. That's the highest vibration, love, and that maybe we can, through these conversations and continuing to invite other, like you said, Marilyn, like-minded people, sisters, to come and join the conversation with us, and just remember, bring back these memories of who we are, and maybe going through and looking at the healing states, and thinking about that as a way to bring us back to ourselves again. For me too, I was thinking about, as you were talking, Marilyn, that having, we're in the helping field, we're helping professionals, and sometimes people come to us really sick and they can't help themselves, and it seems like they don't want to help themselves, and so it's kind of taxing on us to keep helping somebody that doesn't seem to want to help themselves, and so it gets frustrating or taxing or draining. But what I have learned and what I've realized through ceremony and rediscovering my indigeneity, and also connecting with both of you, and the love that we have for each other, the respect that we have for each other, and just this such strong connection that we have. Yeah, we're from different places, but really we're part of the same. We're the same. Really, that's the idea behind that concept too. In Lakesh Halaken, you are my other me. Tú eres mi otro yo. So really being able to see ourselves reflected in each other and act in the world as that being true, that we can really see ourselves in each other, and that we can really share love with each other. And I think for me, it's the connection with the two of you, and a big part of it is also those ceremonial spaces where we connect with the elements. We connect with the water, we honor the water, we honor the fire, and we listen. We listen to the sounds of nature. We listen to the birds. We listen to the little crackle of the fire, the different sounds that the fire makes, the sounds that the water makes, the sounds that the drum makes, right? The sounds even that the songs make, all those little tones and vibrations that have brought me into remembering myself. And so I guess that's the part that I would want to share with others, that to remember who we are. How do we remember who we are? And for those of us that that really think of ourselves and as Indigenous or are seeking to understand ourselves as Indigenous, it's important to have that connection with our culture and our language. So I'll just end with that. And if there's anything else anyone wants to share, I just really
Hey,
want to
I
say
don't know if you can hear me because I think my connection, or
I
is my
can hear
connection
you.
bad?
I can hear you now. I can hear
I
you.
just wanted to extend that thought that you had, I mean, the way that we all feel connected, and the way that you have brought that together in the Seven Sacred Sisters concept, for this upcoming conference that we're going to have together, to continue to build those strong connections together is, really powerful. And so extending that love that we have amongst each other, and, branching out so that our sisters, these ladies who are doing this work alongside of us, know that they're supported. And so I just feel really grateful for getting to be a part of this work with both of you. And I am going to have to say, I'm going to have to sign off. So I just wanted to, say thank you. And, I really enjoy these dialogues, and I'm really looking forward to, continuing to talk about what it means to be well, the healing states. So thank you for facilitating this.
Beautiful. Thank you both. I love you both. And we'll meet again next month, the first Tuesday of the month. We changed it from Monday to Tuesday morning to evening. So it'll be Tuesday, the first Tuesday of the month at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So we just open the invitation. Just let me know via email through the website, www.lunaysolsanctuary.org, LUNAYSOL sanctuary.org. Thank you so much.